SCARLXRD is an artist I've always had mixed opinions on in the past. I never really knew that he was as big as he was, but once I really got into the trap metal community and started talking to people, I realized that people consider him a legend up there with Zilla Kami and Lil Darky. Time and time again I try to listen, but I just can't get the appeal. And don't take that as me hating, because I really do want to understand the SCARLXRD effect, but for me it's just not working. I want to look over his whole story and see how he got to where he is, because once I understand him a little bit more, I might understand the music and get the effect behind it. It's also perfectly possible that I still won't get the appeal, but either way I'm going to have an open mind when we look into the story of SCARLXRD. Marcus Lucas Antonio Lissotrop was born June 19th, 1994 in Wolverhampton, United Kingdom. And what am I putting myself through right now? I can't even say Maryland right, and I'm trying to say Wolverhampton or Wolverhampton, but yeah, that's what the city name is. Hopefully I pronounced it somewhat right. Not much is known about his younger years besides the fact that he grew up in an incredibly religious household, so he was kind of closed off from most of the world, being raised primarily on the internet. They were actually so strict that they completely banned hip-hop within the house, so he'd have to go over to his cousin's place to listen to people like Eminem, Missy Elliott, and Nelly, which doesn't really seem too on brand for the style of music that SCARLXRD was putting out later on in his life. But on the other side of things, he was listening to bands like Korn, Green Day, and Slipknot, so that's a little bit more on brand. He was growing up during the early 90s in the UK. He was very inspired by nu metal because it was hitting its peak, but at the same time he also liked rap music, and he would often write and record it in his room when his parents weren't around, because his parents saw it as a waste of time and wanted him to focus more energy on his studies. But that didn't mean he didn't have any creative outlets growing up, because he was able to dance well enough that he eventually ended up joining a troupe, and that's how he got his hands on his first ever video camera, recording his dance group's routines so they could be submitted to competitions. But what he didn't realize at the time is that that video camera would eventually change his life after he went to college and started recording himself talking about his day-to-day activities, which you would think nobody would be that interested in, but at the time there was a big genre on YouTube called storytime.
That he with a toothbrush.
And it seems like SCARLXRD was an early enough adopter of that type of style that he was able to capitalize off of it and make a full-on career. He ended up starting a channel called Mazy Maz, and his first video was called Ask Maz, but besides just talking into a camera, he would also do prank videos, skit videos, and basically all that early YouTube stuff that people really seemed to like. This would eventually pay off, getting him accepted into the partnership program where he made 3 whole pounds, with him immediately running to his mother to tell her that he was going to be a full-on YouTuber, making thousands of dollars off his videos, which of course she didn't believe at the time, but he really made that a reality, growing and growing, and eventually getting collaborations with people like Sam Pepper, who at this point is definitely looked down on because he has a terrible reputation, but at the time he was a very popular prank channel, pulling in millions of views, and him and Maz became really close friends in a pretty short time. Sam eventually ended up moving to America, and Maz would follow along so he could attend a couple early YouTube conventions where he got to meet Smosh, perform on stage, and just overall make connections and grow his channel even more. Their friendship would eventually break down though after Sam got into trouble for touching girls' butts on the side of the street. Of course this was planned out, it was all for a video, but at the same time people didn't really care if it was fake or not. They thought it was very problematic, so Maz had no choice but to separate himself in hopes of saving his own reputation, which ended up being a good choice because not long after that Sam ended up doing this video where he basically pretended to kidnap his friends and then kill one of them in front of the other one. It was a horrible video and a lot of people were super upset about that, so Scar probably made the right choice there. And around the same time he would drop his first project called Internet Boy, which was definitely a more satirical take on rap music. I don't think it was supposed to be that serious, but it seemed like he actually had a real passion for music because he ended up joining a band not too long after that. This ended up being a nu metal act called Myth City, which was actually pretty successful. They went on 2 tours across the UK as well as dropping a self-titled EP, which ended up doing pretty good on YouTube and not as good on SoundCloud, which makes a lot of sense because at this point Mazy Maz was a really big channel with 700,000 subscribers, so a lot of people were probably coming over from there to check out what he was doing with his band and not so much actually liking the music. Or at least that's how it felt for Maz, because overall he was growing pretty discontent with his channel. He felt like he had to be overly positive every time he got on camera. He wasn't enjoying making the content. He felt dead inside and just like he had no hope or purpose. But at the same time, a lot of people around him were telling him to suck it up because after all, he was living out a dream that most people would kill for and he wasn't satisfied with it. A lot of people would call him whiny for complaining about his situation because he had money, he had fame, what more could he possibly want? But playing that positive character every day and putting on an act and facade was getting so tiring that he decided to make a drastic choice, with him completely privating his entire channel without warning anybody or telling any of his fans he was going to do so, completely fading away, and when he came back he was no longer Mazy Maz, he was now SCARLXRD. But he wasn't really the full-on SCARLXRD that we know nowadays. He wasn't yelling, he didn't have the mask, he didn't have a lot of the characteristics that we would soon know him for. Rapping in kind of a boom bap style, but despite the fact his music was kind of lacking, his videos were definitely good.
When I'm tearing off a thong, yeah.
I mean, all that time as a YouTuber definitely helped him to frame a shot, not to mention he was saving money by not having to hire on a camera crew, and he was putting himself somewhat ahead of the rest of the competition because this was around 2015 when the SoundCloud wave was really popping off, but most artists were only posting audio on SoundCloud and not really doing music videos. But 9 times out of 10 as an artist, you're definitely going to want to do visuals because once people see what you look like and they can relate to it, they're going to like your music a whole lot more, and Scarlord seemed to understand that right from the get-go because for almost every song that he dropped, there was a music video to go alongside it. He ended up dropping tracks like Wednesday, Animated, and Mem X, or it might be Meme with an X. I'm not entirely sure if you're supposed to pronounce the X because a lot of his early tracks also have X's replacing the regular letters, and after all, his name is Scarlord with an X replacing the O, so I think it's kind of like kill switch and you're not supposed to pronounce it, but who really knows. By the time the 2016 rolled around, he dropped his first project called Sauce One, which also had that more basic rap style. I mean, at the time, trap metal didn't really exist. You had some early adopters like Syringe and Bones, but there was no X or Zilla Kami or Cameron Nazi or anybody like that. It was still a pretty foreign concept to scream over a beat in the way that these people were doing it, so it makes sense that Scarlord was running with that more boom bap kind of early SoundCloud style. He ended up running with that until 2017 when he dropped his self-titled mixtape called SCARLXRD, and then after that he ended up deleting all these old projects that had the more basic style. And these 3 projects were called Savior, Anno Domino, and Sauce One, and honestly there's nothing too special on any of them. I mean, if you want to listen to them for the novelty of hearing Scarlord before he really went into that screaming persona, then you can do that because they have an archive, but in my honest opinion, there's not really any reason to go back to these. It's up to you guys to decide if you want to look back at that. But back to the self-titled Scarlord project. This project has hints of both styles. It's not the full distorted screeching stuff that we get used to with the modern day Scarlord, but it does have a more aggressive sound as well as the more funky boom bap stuff kind of mixed in there. Honestly, the artist that I would compare early Scarlord to the most is probably Ben Great, even though most of you watching this video probably haven't heard of him before, but yeah, the styles are kind of oddly similar there.
Hit my line when you come around. I got a pass, I won't speak about. She was good with her mouth, but her name I can't remember, y'all. Got a bad bitch, she looks like Kylie Jenner down.
But either way, it seems like Scarlord was starting to find his sound. He got the mask at this point, and he was making some crazy music videos. Apparently, Scarlord thought he was going to blow up in 2016 alongside the rest of the SoundCloud wave, but it took until 2017 for him to really find his footing, fully get immersed in that trap metal style, and drop the song known as Heart Attack, as well as Chainsaw, which both went on to get 10 million views each. And both of these songs appeared on his album Chain Theory, which when you think about it is actually his 12th body of work. If you include Internet Boy and the one that he dropped with his band, he made 12 albums in the span of about 3 years, so you can see the brute force and non-stop determination that Scarlord had throughout his entire career. Keep in mind, he barely had any collaborations at this point. I'm not really sure why Heart Attack blew up in the way that it did, but I feel like it was only a matter of time before one of his videos hit the right audience for it to really blow up in the YouTube algorithm, and just like that, he became a household name within the trap metal community, doing a tour across Europe where he actually did a show with a pre-famed Tekashi 6ix9ine. Little weird connection there, but yeah, Scarlord was actually the bigger of the two when the show went down. He began working with the producer Muppy, who did the beats for some of his most popular songs. He ended up getting a Genius interview, a Noisy interview, and he even ended up going on Montreality. Surprisingly though, there was no No Jumper interview, probably because he was in Europe and No Jumper is in LA, so he wasn't there that often. But the only downside of Scarlord's career up to this point was the fact that he barely had any collaborations whatsoever, which is kind of cool in one way because it means he did everything on his own, but at the same time he felt very segmented off from the rest of the community when he wasn't working with them. There was rumors that he was going to drop a song with Projects because apparently the two of them used to be friends before Scarlord really blew up. He was also friends with Cameron Nazi and the two of them had an unreleased track, but unfortunately neither one of these songs ended up coming out because after Scarlord got really famous, he ended up leaving them both in the dust. I'm not really sure what the connection was there. Cameron Nazi and Projects both say that it was a big deal. Scarlord says he doesn't really know them or pretends that he doesn't know them, but either way it's weird and he probably should have put the songs out because I want to hear them. And finally in late 2018 he ended up signing a record deal with Island Records, which funnily enough is also the record company that Kid Buu signed with, which probably tells you enough about the quality of this company because he ended up signing a 5-album deal, which was not a good idea because almost immediately he started complaining that they were trying to stifle his creativity, they weren't trying to put any money into his career, they weren't advertising him, the average stuff that every artist starts to complain about once they get one of these big time record deals. So it's usually a better idea to sign a smaller time record deal, maybe get a distribution one, and that way you can put out the music in the way you want and not get screwed over. But you do have to give it to him because unlike most artists in this situation who just stop making music and don't try anymore. He ended up dropping 6 albums in the span of about 2 years just so he could get out of his record deal, and despite the fact he was dropping them as fast as he could, apparently the quality was still pretty high. He ended up starting this record deal by dropping Doom 1, and finally when it was over he dropped Doom 2 completely independently, with a lot of people calling it his best body of work to date. And around that very same time he stopped wearing the mask altogether. I remember thinking at the time that he never took the mask off and nobody really knew who he was, but apparently it's been a pretty open secret that he used to be a YouTuber back in the day. He's pretty open about it, and it's kind of funny that people don't really judge him for it, because I feel like if he was an American artist people would never let him live it down. I mean, look at Corpse Husband, people don't really respect him musically, but Scarlord seems to be completely okay, and I imagine that's only because he's from the UK and people in the European scene are a little bit more accepting of different ways of life, whereas in the American scene a lot of people are more cliquey and they want people to be more authentic with their music. Can't even lie to you and say I don't fall into that box as well, because I remember hearing this guy used to be a YouTuber back in the day and thinking there's no way that he can be taken seriously within the genre. He was a YouTuber, what is he, DDG, Blackie Speaks, I mean come on. But I also feel because he's so segmented off from the rest of the scene, he's never really needed anybody's approval to be a big artist, because if you don't need features to be big then nobody can really stop you. But that's not to say he never dropped one collaboration track during his entire career, because he actually has a song with Zillakami, which is not what you would expect it to be. It's off Trippie Redd's album Neon Shark, which overall is a really bad album, but that song in particular called Dead Desert is one of the worst. I mean, Trippie completely kills it. But at the same time, Scarlord and Zillakami don't sound that good together anyways. It's two completely different types of screaming, and the beat is really weird as well, so not a good song, but hey, at least it happened. He also has a track with Lil Darky, so is Moolah. I think he's going to be on Gizmo's new album. He has a track with Killy, which is really weird, and finally a track with another YouTuber turned rapper known as Corpse Husband. Yeah, that probably would have been a bigger reveal if I didn't talk about Corpse a little bit earlier on in the video, but yeah, they work together. It's kind of cool. People seem to like that track as well, and he also did an interview with Anthony Padilla, which is a super weird connection, but it seems like Scar can basically do whatever he wants in both the YouTube and the rapping space. I feel like if any other artist tried to do the things that Scarlord did, they'd be laughed out of the genre and be called corny to no end, but since he built his entire reputation just off the back of good music, good videos, and really being himself, he's found a place in the genre that's all his own. He never tried to copy anyone else, he never tried to pull any gimmicks, and even though some people don't like him for the fact that he didn't blow up in the traditional way, you gotta give it to him, he found a way to make it work, and even though he was a YouTuber, he somehow became successful in both fields, which goes to show even if you feel like you're very comfortable in your field and you feel like you're good at it, you're paid well, sometimes if you're not fully fulfilled and you have more life to live, you might as well take that risk and try something new. It might just work out for you, but I for one know that if I ever make it big as a YouTuber, I'm staying a YouTuber. You're not going to see Twisted Scarlord or whatever I'd call myself if I became a full-on rapper. Never going to happen. But either way, shout out to Scarlord. I actually found myself liking him a little bit more after doing this video. I still feel like he's a little inauthentic and I don't really fully vibe with the music. But that's a completely personal opinion, so if you want to be mad about that in the comments below, definitely do so. You can tell me why I'm stupid and why Scarlord is actually the best rapper to ever live and nobody else can compare. Honestly, if I want to make you guys really upset, I can say that Netspend makes opium type music, and that's all I really need to say. Now there will be 50 comments down there saying no it's not, but hey, it is what it is. Thank you guys for watching. Shout out Knife Gang. I got the second channel called Twisted Society if you want to check that out. We got interviews, podcasts, music, and more. I got cigarettes, weed, liquor, and whores. What more could you want? But with all that said, I appreciate all you guys for making it to the end. If you made it here, leave a pig emoji in the comments below. It will confuse everybody who hasn't made it to this point, and we'll know who's really gang. We'll really know who the real Knife Gang is if you made it this far. But with that said, thanks for watching. Talk to you next time.